Middlemass. I'm the current community board member for one of the two for Harewood. I've done it for the last 2 terms, so this will be my third if I get elected. I'd like to think that over the last 6 years I've built up a really strong base of relationships with the different stakeholders around the area, so lots of the sports clubs and lots of the residents associations, so it's really good to have those connections with the community to be able to understand what the local issues are in their communities, and then take the understanding that I've managed to build over the last 6 years through the community board process and how we have to interact with council to actually then go through the process of getting things done. It can take a lot longer than people like, but it is nice to see we can actually get things done. I remember the first thing I ever actually got done was it took 6 months of being an elected member and was getting a white line painted down the centre of an intersection because people were cutting across. It was one little stretch about from here to there, but it's like I've actually got something done. So if somebody ever asked me, what do you get done when you as a community board member, I could point to something. So that was a good start, even though it was pretty insignificant off the bat. But like another example, we had a business owner here complaining about whenever it rains, the car park out the back of the supermarket here would flood and there was a lot of big potholes there. And so just with raising that with staff, going through our board team, and then the truckers who are constantly chasing, going, hey, when's that going to get done, when's that going to get done, when's that going to get done, and just keep pestering staff and being that kind of squeaky wheel. It was good to see about 3 or 4 weeks ago that I got a photo about 6:30 in the morning from that business owner saying, hey, great, like the asphalt team was out actually resurfacing that area, so it is good to get things done. One of the other things over the last couple of terms that's been really good, and I think our board as a general has a view of, is we don't like to pick kind of white elephant projects or like the really shiny kind of expensive things. We like to be really pragmatic about the issues and the infrastructure projects that we target to try and get done in our area. Some of them, for example, is Lucy alluded to, over in Belfast. If you've driven down Radcliffe Road, it's a bit of a nightmare for pedestrians and for cyclists to go down there. So as soon as that part of Belfast came into our board area last term, what we did was assign that as a priority, and we spent the last 3 years trying to actually get that project over the line, get it started. That also involves with the long-term plan and the constant shuffling of priorities is you might have something in the long-term plan to be done, but just because it's there doesn't mean it's going to stay in that spot and it's going to get delivered at that time. There's constantly different priorities at council with people trying to push things out, reprioritise things, move money into other areas. So what we had to do is we had to advocate, it's like, no, like in our area, that's one of the things you can't take out. This is the same thing with Gardeners Road, but we're wanting to get a shared path down there to connect the crematorium up to Sawers Arms Road there. That was a board priority that we set in 2019. And we've been pushing council for years to try and get that over the line, and there was government money and they keep kicking the can down the road, and it can be really, really frustrating, but it looks like sometime in the next 12 months we're actually going to get the first part of that delivered. So things like that shouldn't take that long, but unfortunately because we set our priorities as a local community and then we have to go out and strongly advocate for them, but there's 18 seats around the council table in Hereford Street, and they can actually chop and change things just even if we make it a priority here in the local community. So it can be a bit challenging in that regard, but one of the benefits we do have here, even though there isn't a completely full room here today, is that our community is really, really engaged when it comes to submitting on consultations and local issues. So like the cycleways, like Gardeners Road, we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of submissions on those things, more engagement just about than most other parts of town when it comes to that kind of thing. So that support actually makes it really, really difficult for councillors and staff who might have other priorities to actually move those priorities that we have in our part of town here off the list. So that helps us a lot because we can strongly advocate for something, but if we can show that there was 1,000 submissions on a particular issue from our part of town, and it was double or triple the amount from any of the other parts around town, it sends a really strong message. So that's something which is really good about our community. Coming up over this term, so there'll be another priority setting session, and so what we'll be looking to do is kind of work out from the engagement and the communications we've had with the community over the last few years, like what is important to you, and then sort of we set those priorities and then go out and kind of consult on that and say, hey, this is what we think some key priorities for us this coming 3 years. Do you agree with that or do you disagree? So that'll be a really good opportunity after this election and that new cycle to engage with us if there are any particular issues you feel strongly that need to be addressed that aren't being looked at the moment. Like for example, there may be some things out the back of Highstead and Sticks Mill out there with all the construction going on. There could be some infrastructure issues. There's some drainage down Johns Road. There's all of those types of roading infrastructure park type of issues. If there's anything like that comes up, it's a great opportunity to let us know. Even asking questions now, if there's anything particularly pressing, once we get through, just to raise those and there things we can flag as a part of that process. So, that's some of the stuff we like to do. I'd like to think in our area in Harewood we're really pragmatic and we like just to focus on the main 2 or 3 things that are really important to us. We don't try and set 10 goals of things to achieve. So if you guys can help us, help direct us to what those 2 or 3 key things we really want to get across the line are, then that'll be really helpful. So that's me. Thank you very much, and open for questions for everybody.